How do you converge the reach of broadcast television with the interactivity of gaming? According to Genvid Technologies with MILES. And for those of you who don't know, MILES stands for Massive Interactive Live Event. In this talk, we take a retrospective look at Rival Peak, a community-driven massive interactive live event where the audience control the unfolding storyline. This is the heart at what Genvid Technology does, and with MILES, they want to push the trend of user control and interactivity within the many digital fields of entertainment. Please welcome Director of Developer Relations at Genvid Technologies, Christopher Hamilton.
Presentation on massive interactive live events. I'll cover a little bit about myself and about Genvid Technologies. I'll talk about massive interactive live events, or what we call MILES. I'll talk a bit about Spectator centric design, and then I'll jump into the case studies of Rival Peak and Retroit. So my name is Christopher Hamilton, and I'm the Director of Developer Relations at Genvid Technologies in Europe. I've been in the industry since 2007. Here are some of the better known companies that I've worked for here on the right. Or on the left. I'm an American. I used to live in St. Petersburg, Russia. I've been living in Helsinki, Finland since 2014. Most of my career has been in sort of production, partner relation roles with a lot of live ops experience at Rovio. But I also feel very strongly about giving back to the community, so I work with various organizations on my right. I'm on the boards of IGDA, the Finnish Game Jam. My undergraduate degree was in environmental studies, and I was looking at the environmental message in media, and I'm kind of doing that through games as a new form of media now. So I'm working with an organization in Helsinki called For Good Games, which actually rebranded themselves as Heroic Games. But I'm also working on building a special interest group with the IGDA, kind of bringing awareness and impact into games and building a community around that. Genvid Technologies was founded in 2016 by some Square Enix veterans. It is a US-based startup with offices in New York, Montreal, LA, Tokyo, London, and Berlin. We have raised $163 million to date. And you can see the list of investors here. I'll just point out Galaxy Interactive and Makers Fund because we have members from those funds on our board. And I think more importantly, we have these amazing advisors like ex-Square Enix CEO Ichiwada, digital media executives Matt Ball and Andrew Snyder, which are very much in the live streaming space, be it media, movies, Netflix, interactivity. Anna Sweet, who was instrumental in building Valve and Steam into what they are today. She's also head of studio at Bad Robot Games. Cindy Holland, who was VP for original content at Netflix. And JT Gleason, who had 8 years experience leading both partner and developer relations at Twitch. Our mission is to power the future of interactive media. We believe that people love shared experiences, and they particularly love these experiences when their participation matters. So be it gaming, sports, or reality TV, these are the sort of moments that become those water cooler moments in the office, or with the last year and a half, what people have been talking about on the random channel on Slack. We're already working with top-tier platforms, leagues, events to create these experiences. Games and traditional media are at a point of convergence, or perhaps an ongoing evolution of convergence. While games are trying to reach out to wider audiences by creating non-gaming experiences for those audiences and making them a bit interactive, and while media it really wants the stickiness of games have. They would love to get viewers sort of caught up in cycles like free-to-play games and this sort of thing. Good examples of this are Fortnite, which has all these amazing concerts that are happening into it, and that is probably something that only Epic Games can afford because that's involved in creating shards and getting all these users together, millions of users that are actually only in rooms of approximately 100 and 150 people. Twitch is doing a lot of stuff like this. They're helping power drops for streamers and making all these sort of interactive things on Twitch. And actually, we pioneered a lot of this stuff. We were working with Twitch before they had an extension program and sort of got them to develop their extension program. And I will point out that that is a very streamer-focused thing, and that's where Genvid's a little bit different. Looking at media, I think a really good example is something that happened in Helsinki when Vappu happened last year. And Vappu is basically a combination of May Day, a student holiday, rites of spring. Everybody is out in the street drinking beer. It's a great time, except when COVID is happening and you can't do that. So what they did is they created sort of this big online world and invited people to participate. And that event itself allowed people to interact. Like, it deliberately was not on TV show or linear media or anything like this. It was on a live stream where people could be sharing emojis and kind of making avatars and running around the space. It was really interesting. But bottom line, this is happening now. Game developers need to be thinking about this trend and the ongoing shift in paradigm, the sort of interplay that they can have between players and viewers. And I'll touch on that a little bit later. We believe that interactive media is going to create sort of double the market size of games. And here, this chart by Superdata shows game markets in orange. And you can see that that's growing, but you can also see the interactive media market in pink, or maybe it's a light orange, growing at a much faster rate. Until recently, the only thing game developers could really do with streams is maybe work with some streamers and hope that you could get those people that are watching those streams to play your game. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to expand that audience so that we're reaching out to audiences that are just watching games. So with Genvid, for the first time, developers can essentially be part of both markets. And with interactive live streaming, game developers can offer more immersive, more interesting viewing opportunities. So interactivity is the future of mass media content, and massive interactive live events, again, what we call MILES, is the next step in this evolution. We're turning passive viewers into active participants. We seek to disrupt the traditional broadcast experience by offering increased interactivity and a better viewing experience to reach the widest possible audience. And I love the example in this slide where you've got a nature documentary where viewers could control the weather. Maybe they can somehow affect the predators that are there, or you have like people that are engaged in a music concert and they can sort of choose what's happening next. So MILES are cloud-powered, highly engaging, interactive live broadcast events that anyone can be part of in a large audience while directly participating in a meaningful way. They combine the best of lean-forward gaming, lean-back TV, and live entertainment. Here, the audience will matter, and the individual can decide their own level of involvement or participation. What we're doing is new, and we're often confused with other trends, so I think it's often best to explain what we're doing by explaining what we're not. So first and foremost, we are not a streamer tool. We really want to make viewer-centric experiences and new forms of gameplay and entertainment. Streamers typically only have a small following. They're not really related to the game development studio or the game itself. Usually the goal is to get people from that streamer into the game and somehow monetize them. So we're not a streamer tool. We're not cloud computing. We're not trying to compete with Stadia. That stuff does not really scale at costs. So we are native cloud streaming. So we scale roughly, sometimes cheaper, sometimes more expensive than multiplayer servers. And finally, we're not a platform. We are not competing with Twitch. We've worked very closely with Twitch throughout our entire existence. And we're a preferred Twitch partner, but we're also platform agnostic. We have games on YouTube. We have games on Facebook. We feel it's important for developers to choose the platform that best fits their audience, and then build and use a partnership accordingly. Oh, and I'll take a little water break. So right now we have a growing sort of underserved market, which is the viewer. Historically, game developers are really focused on making content for the players. And they create great experiences, and they know how to monetize those experiences. And developers are kind of only now starting to think of having viewers as part of that ecosystem, that there's a way to create experiences for those viewers, get them involved, monetize them, and that's why it's kind of exciting to talk about this. And so I'll apologize to people who don't know anything about baseball. I should probably come up with a different sport, maybe Formula One or something like this. But this really highlights why viewers are underserved, because most streaming experiences look something like this. I have no idea what the score is. I have no idea who's on base. I really don't have any idea what's going on. And when I watch most streamers on Twitch, this is basically what it looks like to me. Unless I've played that game myself, I have no idea what's going on. And since I have no competency in what I'm viewing, it's not particularly exciting. I don't really want to watch this. I kind of move on to the next streamer. And so since streamers can only broadcast from the player's perspective, it's just really challenging to do this because the audience loses the big picture. They lose the strategy, the tactics, the nuance that makes the viewing experience interesting. And so, yeah, it's just not particularly engaging to me. We want to help game developers, and again, not streamers, but game developers, get to this. Game developers have the ability to put in new camera angles. Our technology allows them to put in all sorts of tables, live data. You can create online maps, and then have real-time player location, so you can begin to show the strategy, the tactics, and you can build spectator-centric value and tap into this audience. We at Genvid, we're focused on that participant experience, and we feel by creating value-driven participant experience that has numerous ways that the viewers can engage with it. We can create a cool funnel that benefits not only the players, but the audience, and really create fandom and competency around the game that makes it compelling to watch. And it's important to know that professional sports are spectator-driven businesses, and it's just interesting how this is all kind of coming to play. So again, looking at the core here, what game developers know, what game developers are building around is they're building around that core experience of the players. And there are opportunities in making experiences for interactive viewers, which is another way of saying participants, and spectators that are leaning out and just watching. These experiences are more accessible. They don't require them to actually know how to play the game. And they end up just bringing value and fandom. And when I talk to developers, a lot of them are like, yeah, you know, I understand what you're talking about on some sort of intuitive level, mostly because I watch my teenage kids and they're all watching more games on some sort of live stream than they are actually playing the game. And it's like, how do we figure out how to incorporate this and how to make it all work? And so what does all this mean, and how do we do this? I mean, people go to stadiums to enjoy a rich experience, and they get that rich experience by being competent and knowing what they're watching. It's knowing the nuances or some of the nuances of a sport, or about the music that they're watching if it's a concert. And just here are some ways that we can do it. So on the left, viewers can kind of constantly pull up information. Again, we can pull up real-time maps to show where players are, show the tactics, show the strategy that we're missing before. You can pull up leaderboards. Maybe I have a fan favorite player and I compare his or her statistics to somebody else's. Again, having bird's eye cameras in that give a bigger picture of what's going on helps the audience understand what's going on. Jumping to the middle, we live in a world of live ops. Games are constantly under development. They're constantly changing, the rule sets are constantly changing, so it's important to let your viewers kind of understand what's going on. And this is a great way just to onboard viewers, but it's also a great way to onboard players at the same time. I also look at this as a re-engagement feature because, you know, it might be some sort of RPG game, and I can see through this event that ogres have a 3x buff on this weekend event that I decided to tune into, and I'm gonna have a powerful ogre from 6 months ago from when I was playing. So I might go dust off my ogre, see what it can do, and actually jump into the game. And then here on the right, which is what a lot of developers think about it, that's the ability to reach out, touch the game, and impact it by having a viewer send a lifeline to a player, or maybe set traps and impede them some way. And so this empowers viewers to become active participants in the ecosystem and help drive massive interactive live events. And now, somehow that slide didn't move. Interesting. My notes kind of didn't make it to this, but we'll ad-lib it. Rival Peak as a mile is basically made up of 3 different components. The first component is a Facebook instant game, and it's a persistent world, and it's basically similar to the reality show Big Brother, in which there are 12 different AI characters that are driven by a sophisticated AI that was built by Pipeworks Studios, and basically the audience can follow what these AI characters are doing 24/7. And they can interact with them the whole time through what are called audience participation event, or APEs. And normally on a reality TV show, you would be sort of voting for the player, and this is exactly how you do that. You engage with these characters on their various live streams, and each engagement is sort of a vote for that character, and then the character with the lowest score at the end of the week is then eliminated. The second part of this is called Rival Speak. It was a Facebook Watch original show. It was hosted by Will Wheaton. It ran weekly. The showrunners, the producers, Will himself had no idea who was going to get eliminated from week to week, so it was a little complicated to do it, but this show was actually a little bit more like Lost. There were crazy conspiracy theories, there was an incredibly complex storyline, and the users themselves, all the people that were watching the live stream, through voting and through other participation, they were able to shape that whole storyline itself. and sort of all these players sort of moved through the storyline and created it as it all unfolded. And then Will, in this Rival Speak show, wrapped things up. He interviewed some of the characters, even though they were AI, and basically helped people get into this crazy conspiracy theory world of all these AI-driven characters. And then the third component to this was actually the Facebook platform itself. It used to be that people would watch something like Game of Thrones and they would be live tweeting about that. And here, basically, all the characters had their own pages on Facebook. All of the viewers were able to sort of jump in, leave their own comments, ask questions. Support was able to get back to them. So really, this was all a three-part process and experience. Okay, and now I'm back to this slide. So the Rival Peak originally ran from December 2020 to March 21. This is an animated GIF. There were 13 different high-fidelity live streams, and you can see one here. And I'll just sort of run you through the whole interface. The whole game is still running in rerun mode, so you can scan this QR and jump to the Facebook page. There's a vote that's happening here in the lower right-hand corner. This is Portia's page. We've tapped on her live stream. She needs to get exercise. This is sort of like an idle mechanic that you can just click on it, interact with her. She gets points, you get points as a viewer. There are dialogues. There's new dialogues up in the left-hand corner. Map to show you where kind of all the players are, all of the contestants are on the map. The home button, which will take you to a 13th live stream that cycles through all the 12 different contestant live streams. Portia's button herself, which would let me know how much I've actually interacted with her. It also lets me know what her daily needs are in terms of, does she need socialized? Does she need food? Does she need water? What other sort of basic living things she sort of needs? Because in many ways, this is also like a Tamagotchi-style experience. There are dialogues, which is sort of the way that all these sort of characters communicate with one another and how the participants or how the audience themselves follow the line, and then gamified elements through achievements, leaderboards, settings available in eFigs, and then the Rival Speak show where you could actually jump in and watch the show itself. Across the bottom are the 12 contestants themselves. You can see the 3 on the right have already been eliminated. Anybody with a pip or an exclamation point means they're doing something and I, the viewer, can kind of jump in and interact with them. And basically, the project ran from December 2nd to March 3rd. There were 100 million minutes watched. There were about 55 times the amount of minutes watched between week 1 and week 13. Not the best indicator because Facebook really didn't start promoting this until week 4, partially because we were like, how does this scale? Let's test all the bugs. Let's make sure everything works. Mostly looking at stability. And then again, these are the type of the dialogues or the type of interactions that the audience could engage with, which was primarily dialogues. Again, this was a nice asynchronous way for the audience to follow what was going on in the event itself. But then there were also daily votes, and the daily votes are the type of things that really sort of shape the storyline. What's the weather going to be like tomorrow? Should we make it rain? Should it be snowy? Do we give them heat packs if it's cold? Do we have one character sort of steal something from another character? Does a romance start between one character and another character? And these were the things that sort of created the drama around the whole storyline and pushed the narrative forward and why it was sort of community-driven narratives. And then there were contestant goals. And again, that goes back to what Portia was doing before. A lot of the characters would just sort of stop, give you kind of a weird look like I should be doing something. And it's at that moment you can kind of figure out what they need to do. And then there's sort of a 3-way vote that you can have them experiment with this sort of voting mechanism. A number of people are voting at the same time. The vote with the most, the result with the most votes is what the character ends up doing. So the other mini games of how this all works were basically project power-ups. That was the sort of idle mechanic I was talking about before. Match 3s and memory games. I used to work at a company that made hidden object puzzle adventure games, and there were a lot of sort of puzzle things that we wanted to do, but we also decided that that was sort of very complex and difficult to onboard viewers for. So as a result, we just stuck with these sort of basic things that are very easy, that seem almost universal and anybody understands. We also added things to help gamify the experience as we progressed, which was the maps, the achievements, leaderboards, and something called tribute challenges, where basically people could just play match 3 games and then contribute that sort of tribute to one of the contestants, or they could also send some evil surprises their way. And then here are some basic demographics. which are basically top 5 countries with the USA, Mexico, Brazil, India, and the Philippines, which I find very interesting because basically these are 13 Unity instances in the cloud that are streaming. So actually it works very well on low-end Android devices, and that's probably why it did so well in a lot of these countries. And it was always interesting to me because when I was working at Rovio, there was a lot of talk about, can we get into this market? This is something that looks very interesting to us. And it was always like, yeah, we could try to do that, but if we do that, then a whole bunch of Android users will have negative experiences and give us low ratings and all of this sort of thing. So it's interesting to see how that performed very well for us. This experience is much more like a casual game, even lighter than a casual game, so I was very surprised that there were more men involved in this than women. Only 4% of the people on PC. That really surprised me, but that probably says something more about my age than anything else. 12% of the users using iPhone is largely the result of the fact that Facebook did not support iOS at launch. It was something that really only when we got momentum around the whole experience, that midway through the whole event did they actually support iOS. And then just also looking at the age, you see a lot of people that are from older demographics, people that aren't normally playing video games. And then a little inspiration for people that are out there and kind of how this all started is there's a company called Pipeworks Studios in Oregon, and they basically created this very complex AI, and this was sort of the original version. You had 10 characters, they were on an island, and they were all trying to kill each other. And the game would basically play itself out roughly every 15 minutes or so, and everybody in the office was sort of transfixed. Who was going to die and who was going to be the survivor this time? Really kind of weird, but the fact that everybody in the office couldn't stop watching this, they decided to reach out to us because we're working on Spectator experiences and this sort of thing. And so we had them create this demo where basically you, the viewer, could control a drone and drop something into the experience. And it could be something good, like maybe you're sending a first aid kit to somebody, maybe you're sending better weapons to somebody. But the idea was the viewer actually gets to play God and tip the scales one way or the other. I kind of like to refer to this as sort of like an ant farm that I get to poke in a way. Ultimately, this was something that we were showing to a bunch of other people. Facebook was really interested in it. We continued discussing it, and it eventually evolved into a multi-million-dollar project. And so this is Retreat by Black Block, which is another demo I'll use as a case study. Rival Peak was really more about this community-driven experience or community-driven storytelling. And Retreat is something I'd like to call maybe the metaverse of Miles. Retreat is an in-development, mobile-first MMO where thousands of players live together in a persistent, always online city. It's being developed by a small studio in Helsinki. This is a mobile-first MMO. It does not exist on PC. So they were actually very interested in having sort of an entry point through Twitch where people on PC could play it. It will be released on iOS and mobile, but it's currently only available in Android, in soft launch in Finland and in Poland. And so welcome to the world of Retreat. And this is basically what it looks at from Twitch. You can see the live stream. You can see all the elements from the interactive stream around it. You can see the news scroller because it's going back and forth because this is an animated GIF. I just want to point out that this is only a proof of concept demo just to test some basic interactions, and it's not at all fleshed out really. But this is sort of a mini game where we're getting game data from the game itself. When cars crash in this world, they will pop up in these little dink things. I, as the viewer, I can collect these on this HTML5 game. That gives me points, and that will allow me to deploy things into the game. I can also select from a number of different cars just to see where cars are, how they're kind of playing out in the world. This is sort of deploying a pinata into the game. The developers just wanted to have some crazy, fun, goofy interactions. Just for fun, you'll notice that there's a timer on this when it starts. It's basically 5 seconds coming in. There is a little bit of latency from when the viewer actually inputs something for that to go all the way back to the server that is streaming this on the live stream and actually have that input in. And so this is a little bit like me fumbling this morning, trying to figure out how the faucet in my hotel shower worked, and is this way hot or is this not hot? Having that indicator lets you know, okay, this is coming in, and I don't need to be madly clicking buttons because something isn't working. Soccer balls was another thing that they wanted to put in, and sometimes when we've done demos, it's really interesting to see players freak out because normally soccer balls are not in the game, and we might have 15 soccer balls kind of running around the whole thing. And then cash trucks, I think, are the most interesting thing that you can drop in because this is something that actually impacts player behavior. When players go after the cash truck and smash into it, they get money. Obviously, they want money because they want to level up their cars and this sort of thing. However, there's sort of a risk-reward to this in that when you hit the cash truck so many times, the cash truck will explode, so you might actually ruin your car chasing after this guy. And then this is the Project Raven concept trailer. This is a project that's already in production. We've already licensed a well-known IP, and this again is another sort of community-driven narrative, and we're experimenting in this one with some more, how do I say, puzzle-type games to solve.
Somewhere deep in the woods, an evil is lurking. And everyone will be watching it unfold live.
Okay, and just some key takeaways. The audience watching live streams is growing faster than the games market. It's sort of an expanding blue ocean that we feel is rapidly maturing as there are lots of different players in this field. Things are growing in lots of different ways. We're platform agnostic, so pick the platform that sort of works best for your game and try to go after that audience there, be it Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. Native cloud streaming reduces friction. There's nothing to install, there's nothing to download, you just go and it's there, it's instant, it's available. It's also highly accessible, not only because it works well on low-end Android devices, but because I don't really have to be able to play the game to enjoy the experience. I can really just lean back and watch it. I can lean in and experience it and have some sort of impact with that. I'll take questions. I might want to add that anybody that has a persistent world type game that is thinking metaverse-style dreams or anything like this largely resonates with this. I've got a lot of people from film backgrounds that entered the video game industry, and it seems to resonate with them, and we've been having a lot of conversations. There's another company in Finland that has actually been building a whole universe, and they're building 2 video games on that universe, and when they heard about our technology, they were like, wow, this is a whole nother way that we can reach our universe, not only through the games, but through the universe itself. So if this is resonating with anybody, feel free to reach out to me. Questions?